and executed well, pensions dashboards can deliver significant benefits to consumers, providing better access for information about their pensions held in different schemes, as these days people often have many different schemes. This will bring a step change in how people engage with their pension saving and will finally allow them to have full picture of those savings. And equipped with this information, individuals will be better able to plan for their retirement and seek financial advice and guidance, find lost pension pots, and make informed decisions. As you know, Mr. Chair, the government is supporting the development of the digital architecture needed to make these pension dashboards a reality, as well as facilitating the development of a government-backed pension dashboard by the Money and Pensions Service. We have also supported the development of multiple private sector pensions dashboards. Different individuals will have different needs, and this will ensure that a wider range of platforms exist to suit such needs. However, we are clear that this can only take place when you've got this sort of multiplicity of providers. It can only take place with a suitable, robust regulatory framework, recognising that consumers using pension dashboards could be vulnerable to unfair and potential harms. During the passage of the Pension Schemes Act 2021, the government committed to bringing the operation of a pension dashboard service within FCA regulation. This order amends the regulatory perimeter to make operating a pension dashboard service, which connects to the Money and Pension Service dashboard's digital architecture, a regulated activity. What does that mean once in force? It'll mean that this has the effect that anybody choosing to operate a pensions dashboard will need to be authorised and regulated by the FCA. Of course.
Thanks very much for the intervention. This new legislation obviously refers to a lot of personal data for individuals regarding their personal pensions, and I see that the government have suggested that commercial bodies will also be involved. Can the Minister give guarantees with regard to the protection of the data for individuals involved in this?
Minister. I thank the honourable gentleman for his point, and the whole House knows of his strong commitment not only to those in his constituency but across the country in terms of protecting people from unfair potential harms, and he's illustrated that by his question. I'd say two things in response. The first is the reason why we are making this a regulated activity is precisely to protect individuals, whether it be their data, whether it be being open to potential scams or anything else. And that's why, under that regulated activity, the FCA will be watching anybody who operates a pension dashboard service. And the second thing I'd say is why we're not just having one government one, and rather than having a multiplicity of private providers, is because different people will want different things, different institutions will operate things in a different way. It's important to make sure we have the right competition, but that competition needs to be underpinned by safety and security, and that's why it's being made a regulatory activity. Now, firms who are authorised by the FCA and are granted permission to undertake the new regulated activity will have to follow the rules set by the FCA, and as honourable members may be aware, the FCA consulted on rules for pensions dashboards last year, and we will continue to work with them as they develop their response. In conclusion, Mr. Chair, this statutory instrument delivers important change to ensure that appropriate consumer protections are in place whilst progressing our ambitions for pension dashboards. I hope that the committee will join me in supporting this measure, and I commend the order to the House. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And there were a lot of interesting points made, so I will first deal with the points from my opposite number from the Labour benches. She discussed the broader policy agenda around open banking. And I'd like to say, in response to her question, am I going to take a holistic view? The answer is yes. It's important to see all of these things in one go, and I'm doing a lot of work with the industry on that. But it's important to see that there are fundamental differences between the goals of pension dashboards and open banking. This comes to some of the points from the honourable gentleman from the SNP as well. Open banking seeks to enable data sharing and increase competition and innovation in the banking market, whereas pensions dashboards will help to increase awareness and understanding among consumers of their pensions. So we're talking almost a sort of producers and consumer difference here in terms of what the purpose of it is. One of the key differences is that it would be very unusual for somebody not to know the provider of their bank account, whereas we know that people have lost track of their pensions, particularly because they have so many different pots often. So the starting point is different, and it requires a different technical solution. Now, in terms of the Honourable Lady's question about whether it was going to use the Government One login service, the short answer is I don't know, but I'm happy to write to her as to that. And to be honest, I had to confess, I will have to check that up myself. So I thank her for that question, which I don't know the answer to. But in relation to timing, this SI is the beginning of the process whereby, as soon as possible, we will make sure that the architecture is made and built and developed and done safely. And this takes me to not just the Honourable Lady's point, but the Honourable Gentleman's point about really minimising the risk of people's data and them losing their data. Now, it's important for the committee and the House to know that no data is stored on pensions dashboards. It is not possible, as a result, to mass harvest the data of individuals via dashboards technology. As for the Money and Pensions Service, security standards are designed to ensure that qualifying pension dashboards interfaces to the ecosystem meet the appropriate level. Okay, yeah.
I appreciate the Minister's reassurances, and I take some reassurance from that, but he will be aware that it wasn't possible for anybody at Fujitsu to mess about with information held on Horizon until somebody discovered that it was possible. Without needing to go into too much detail, at what level of expertise and what level of independence from the whole project are these assurances of IT security being tested?
Yep. I thank the Honourable Gentleman. He asked at what level. It's the national, in terms of the Money and Pensions Advice Service, it's the National Cyber Security Centre who is advising specifically on these. And I'm happy to talk with him about that in future weeks and months. But that's the level of seriousness with which we take this. And when it comes to other private sector providers, as we talked about at the beginning of the committee, for them, the FCA will determine at which point they are able to connect to the technical architecture, and that will be the various dependencies, but in particular, the time required in order for them to familiarise themselves with the rules, when the architecture is ready, and various other things. But the FCA will determine that. Why? I go back to where the purpose of this whole statutory instrument, because they are going to make sure this is a regulated activity to address the concerns of the committee and others outside this committee, because it is very, very important, as we all agree. This SI, to conclude, Mr. Chair, introduces an important addition to the Regulated Activities Order to ensure pensions dashboards operators are appropriately regulated and consumers are protected. And I'm glad that there appears to be broad support as to the aims in the committee. I'd like to thank committee members for this debate, which I hope the House has found informative, and I hope that the committee will join me in supporting this secondary legislation.